Hello, we're here with Andrew Chin, one of the well-known and intrepid Patagonian Extreme Cold Water Challenge swimmers. Congratulations, Andrew.
Thanks, Stephen. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I understand you just got back from Patagonia. Was it a long trip over there and back?
Uh, it was crazy. The amount of planes we had to take, boats, buses. It was about a 27-hour flight to get to Punta Arenas with all the stopovers. We spent 40 odd hours on the boat traveling to the Horn and back. I don't know how many hours in the car driving to do Magellan the first time, and then the second time because we couldn't because of the weather. We then tried to get in a swim in one of the glacial lakes because we never got a sub-5 swim. And that was about five or 6 hours on the boat again, and another 10 hours on buses. So we did a lot of traveling. And I think everyone came back pretty exhausted.
Yeah. So you did 3 incredible swims. Can you just briefly go through each of the 3, and then we'll go in details in each of them.
Sure. For me, the inspiration for the trip actually came from reading Lynn Cox's Swimming to Antarctica, where she did the Beagle and Magellan way back, I think in '78. She did the Beagle. We with Rum and the other guys wanted to do an ice swim, which is under 5 degrees, and thought that the Beagle would be the answer. But because we are a hell of a long way away, we decided to make the trip a bit bigger and do 3 swims. Once we were laying out our own hard-earned cash. So we started off with Magellan, which is the highest of the swims. I mean, in terms of distance from the South Pole. So we flew into Punta Arenas, and we met by Claudia, our connection over there. We organized everything for us really amazingly. The swim for Magellan was from Punta Delgado onto the Tierra del Fuego, where the ferry crosses. That's the shortest distance to cross the channel. A straight line, it's about 4 kilometers. So we ended up probably swimming a little bit more, zigzagging up and down. The Navy was on standby for all our swims. For that particular swim, we had 3 dinghies, 3 rubber ducks with Army divers and such like on board. The day before the swim, we tried to do it, and it was called off because the wind was over 25 knots. So the day of the swim, we were lucky enough to have a break in the weather, and we got into the water and started swimming, and about 10-15 minutes into the swim, the wind picked up, but there was no ways they were going to get us out the water. And it blew the rest of the time at between 25 and 35 knots. I think there was the odd squall of like 42 knots or something during that period. But luckily we had done a lot of training at home in Cape Town, and we had particularly strong southeasters blowing during our training. So it made for a really interesting challenge, because the one thing we didn't expect was the kind of white waters that we experienced. The wind really blew. It made the swim a lot more difficult. We started together, the 5 of us, and Ryan and Kyron, the 2 younger guys, went soon went off ahead. I was somewhere in the middle, and Roman talks behind. And we finished. I think they did about a 103, and I did 112, 115, and Roman talks about a 122, 120. So we were all quite close together. We got washed around. There was a lot of kelp going into the Tierra del Fuego, which was really thick kelp. So you kind of ended up being beached on top of it coming in. All made for a bit of a laugh. I struggled with cramps on that swim, especially towards the end. And actually, when I stood up, my legs cramped quite badly, and I had to be helped. I made sure I cleared the water, and then I was helped out onto a blanket, and a physio tried to stretch me a bit.
Wow, can I ask a question about that? So
Sure.
You're cramping up in this middle of a cold, rough channel. Aren't you getting nervous?
I could see the shore, and
Okay.
I knew that I was going to make it, and there was no ways I was getting out. I have suffered from cramp before, but never quite to this extent where both my legs ended up seizing up right at the end. It was very painful, and I think the memory of that makes the Magellan crossing the physically the hardest of the three for me.
Okay.
that we did. We discussed the swims amongst ourselves afterwards, and everyone had a different swim as their most difficult. But for me, physically, it was the hardest. Mentally not, but physically it was. There were dolphins on the swim, and they come right into the shore. The trip back with the Navy was interesting. I think it took longer for the rubber ducks to get us halfway across than that we actually swam, because they went into the wind, and we were all sopping wet again by the time we got to shore. But yeah. For us, the swim was a bit controversial, because from all the research that I had done, everything kind of pointed to water temperature being 4 to 5 degrees from what we had read. And from our ice swimming experience, we before the swim didn't think that anyone could survive in that kind of temperature for that length of time. Ram did 40 odd minutes in Zurich, and had to be carried to the car after the swim, just about. So and the Navy measured it. They showed us on their laser temperature reading that 3.5 degrees, and we thought it was closer to 11. And we were left feeling a little bit uneasy, because we don't want to. Other people have claimed to swim in those conditions and those temperatures, and so it's a tough call as to what we say, in terms of what the Navy has said and what we actually feel the water temperature was. And we spent many hours afterwards discussing it, and I don't really know what the answer is to our dilemma.
Yeah. Well, you had a independent third party tell you it was 3 to 4 degrees. I wonder if using their equipment they were measuring water below the surface of the water as opposed to the water at the surface where you were swimming.
Yeah, we thought about that, and what's a little bit alarming is or different maybe it could be what we have in Cape Town is the water on the top often warms up because it lies still, or when the wind's not blowing, and then it gets churned up by the stronger winds. But in that area, that part of the world, the wind blows continuously, so you're having the water churned all the time. And also when one kind of hung yourself in the water, it didn't feel any different at your toes to your shoulders, which which is something we feel when we swim in Camps Bay, for example. Yeah, it often feels a degree or two cooler, but yeah, so be it. Yeah, the Navy said it was 3.5. We think it was warmer, and you could be right. It could be that the laser takes it much deeper than what we take, the surface or close to the surface temperature.
Yeah. And then the second swim, what were the issues there?
The second swim, being the Beagle Channel, yeah, we initially were planning just to do a single crossing. In other words, from Chile to Argentina. Although the swim had been done many times before, I think there've been about nine crossings, or 9 individuals who have crossed, according to the information I could find. There've been no official records kept of that swim. So, you know, with the Navy and the mayor in Port Williams, we've now made sure that proper records will be kept in that area, which I think will be great for future swimmers. The swim was from Punta Pena in Chile to Punta McKinley on the Tierra del Fuego on the Argentinian side. Yeah, there was quite a bit of paperwork involved. We had to get our visas stamped, probably the shortest stay anyone's done in Argentina. You know, we got our ankles out the water and back in and back towards Chile. The weather was pretty good. You know, the sun was shining, the wind wasn't blowing. We anticipated the water being colder than Magellan, and it was. You know, we measured it at around about 8 or 9 degrees, and you could feel the difference from Magellan at bit as we jumped in. You know, there were strong currents pushing along the sides of the channel. And it was quite alarming. We had a huge debate just before we started swimming as to where we were going to get out, because we didn't believe that we could swim through the current, and we would be pushed further along, which is what happened. Going across from Chile to Argentina, we could kind of peg ourselves. There was a kind of a lighthouse beacon, or just a navigation beacon on the Argentinian side that we aimed for, and we came out probably 200 meters to the west of that beacon,